Hello there, guys, and welcome to the long, boring code rant video for the second channel. This is going to just be me covering topics that I briefly or did not even talk about at all in the main channel video, so prepare to see Visual Studio stuff. Anyways, starting off, I wanted to talk a bit about land generation and, well, how this actually gets implemented. You can definitely see this a lot in the video on the main channel. The remnants of the Elden Ring map are just sort of floating out there in the distance. This is because the way I have this set up, the Morrowind mainland basically inserts itself into the center of the world. And right now, I'm not deleting the original tiles that are not used. I'm just leaving them as is. In the final release, of course, that stuff will just get replaced with blank MSBs, and there won't be anything there. But for the moment, I could actually go ahead and load this and show you guys what it looks like, so give me 1 second. Alright, so here we are back in the actual Elden Ring map, and as you can see, if you go over to where the Morrowind map starts, it literally just cuts off. There is quite literally just a line here all the way along. And funnily enough, because of the fact that the water extends out really far, large parts of the Elden Ring map are just underwater now, if I go over here. But yeah, if I go over here to where the land's a little bit lower, the water from the Morrowind map actually just drowns the entire game world slightly. There is no physics settings for this or anything like that, you can just go underneath it. But I had this thought that it'd be kind of fun, maybe, to make a mod later on that's like, every few minutes the water level rises and have it like start out where you're in Limgrave and the water level chases you as you extend up towards Liurnia and then Altus Plateau. And then just add a kill box and some like physics changes to like make that work properly. I don't know how viable that is. It's feasible. It could definitely be a mod, but it's an idea. It's just interesting to see, you know, giant water plane covering the entire Elden Ring map like this. But yeah, anyways, I wanted to talk about shaders, actually. This is a thing that it's like sort of done, but not all the way done. I basically implemented all the systems I needed and did some of the work already, but I haven't really like fleshed it out all the way. Most of the shaders in this game are just quite literally albedo, diffuse, nothing else. Because Morrowind doesn't have normal maps, Morrowind doesn't have specular maps, Morrowind doesn't really have anything except for diffuse textures. So that fits just fine for a lot of materials. But I also wanted to try and implement things to make things look nicer. One of the like obvious things I did was I put a foliage shader on the trees so that like the trees kind of wave back and forth slightly. Morrowind does not have that, obviously. This is something I'm just adding in because I want to try and make this look as nice as possible within the engine, but I also recognize that it's low-resolution textures and really low poly models, so it's not going to look amazing. I'm just trying to leverage what's possible. The water and swamp shader is an obvious example of this. This is mostly Elden Ring textures, but I also threw in the Morrowind coloration for the swamp, so it matches the Morrowind swamp colors but has the Elden Ring shaders. Same thing for the lava and the water. I did my best to like make things as nice as possible, and in the future I think there's a few more I can do for things like the Ghost Gate and like waterfalls and stuff. I can definitely use Elden Ring shaders and just try to leverage the textures as best I can, but that's something to worry about later on when the mod's more finished, to be honest. And also, funnily enough, speaking of textures, it is such a guessing game. There's no... Morrowind doesn't really have, like, material names or definitions. It just has, like, just straight references to textures. So I just have to look at the texture name and guess what it is from that. It's very dumb, but there's, like, a whole section of code that is, like, looking for keywords and texture names. Like, it'll look for the word dirt to find dirt. It'll look for the word sand. It'll look for the word foliage or tree or leaf. It's very silly. And oh yeah, also for people who are fans of Morrowind, Tarheel up there, I never knew this, but he has like an invisible box he stands on that gets deleted when you get close, and you can just see him up there because there's no scripting data he's just chilling up there. You can just see him in the distance. I kind of love that. I always thought that he spawned in. I thought he was disabled and he spawned in, but apparently he's like standing on a platform or something. Another thing that is a pain in the ass in this project. So Morrowind uses a standardized like XYZ, left, front, up coordinate system. From Software had to be special, and From Software uses -XZY. And my brother in Christ, why? It's so annoying to convert from that coordinate system. Just to like make my point about this, I have this code here that converts the rotations for objects from Morrowind standard to Elden Ring standard, and I don't actually know why this works. I just know that this works. It is quite literally, I think I just brute forced this by trying every combination of transformation until one of them actually worked correctly. I hate that Elden Ring uses this coordinate system. It is the worst fucking thing ever. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about landscape generation, as it's kind of interesting. Now, a lot of the models that are in this game are just, standard models. They're in the Bethesda format of .nif, and we go through a process of converting them to FBX and then FLVER, which is the Elden Ring Dark Souls format. And a house is just a model of a house with a model of a door and a model of a window and a model of a roof, just all separate pieces. But the terrain is different. The terrain is stored in a compressed proprietary just raw data format. It's inside of the ESM. And this data is not like a mesh. It is just a series of height values and texture and color values. So in order to build the landscape, we actually have to decode that and regenerate the mesh, which is fun. I learned a lot about triangulating meshes through programming doing this. And it's interesting also because Elden Ring and Morrowind are just so opposed in the way they handle shading these things. So terrain is interesting in that it's got blending. You can paint dirt and you can paint grass and you can paint rocks, and it all just kind of blends together to show that this is what it looks like in the Elder Scrolls. You can just open up the landscape edit and just pick a texture and just paint it. And the game automatically blends those textures together to make things work, right? Elden Ring does not have this. Instead, I have to subdivide the mesh. After triangulating everything, I subdivide it out based on groups of materials, and then basically fake it till I make it and try to make it look as close as possible. One of the worst parts of this is blending the borders. So each segment of landscape is called a cell, and it's like a grid. It's like a Minecraft chunk, basically. And the borders of those, I have to actually blend the border lines. I think there's a border line right here somewhere. You can't see it because my blending code works, but the blending code is terrible because I want to multi-thread landscape generation because it takes forever. But in order to blend edges between different cells, I have to single thread because I have to guarantee that the section next to it, if two sections are on two different threads generating at the same time, you can't blend the borders because the data is not ready yet. It's not in a format that's immutable and ready to be read from. It's still in flux at that point. So landscape generation sucks. There is a debug flag, quite literally just for this purpose. Down here somewhere, it says debug skip terrain border blending, which re-enables multi-threading for landscape generation, because when I'm building for debugging, I don't care if it looks nice. I just want to make sure it works. So I have an option just to turn. There's actually a couple different options in here to just turn things off. Water circlification takes a while. These right here actually build areas by name. So if I want to just build Saint Denis, I just build this box right here. A lot of this stuff is because building this project takes a long time. Building the entire game world with all the settings off takes about an hour. I think. It's somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour. So I have a lot of debug options to speed things up, to just give myself a chance to not have to wait 30 minutes to test one change. But yeah, landscape generation. Actually, one of the more complex things, and one thing that I don't have that I would really like to fix. So Morrowind uses vertex colors to color its terrain. Elden Ring shaders don't support this right now. I do believe, based on what I talked Drop-Off about, it is possible to decompile and recompile Elden Ring shaders, and I would like to recompile one of the HLSL shaders to enable vertex color multiplying into albedo color, as that's like how a lot of old games work. Even Dark Souls 1 works like this, actually. It's funny that Dark Souls 1 has this same thing where it multiplies the vertex color of a mesh into the diffuse color to allow you to color meshes or color tiled textures in a specific way. It's a nice feature. It's a useful feature. I don't know why it's not supported in this game. The funniest part is that the game has vertex color in its models. It's not like there's no vertex color. It's there. They're just not using it correctly, because the way it's set up in Elden Ring is it multiplies the red channel as a luminance channel into the mesh. I don't know why. It's so odd. But yeah, that's a big thing that's like on my mind. At some point, I want to do that and fix it and like bring vertex color into the rendering properly. What's next? HKX. So another thing I want to talk about is HKX material splitting. This is a workaround situation, so I'm not sure if anyone noticed this. This is like a subtle thing that I really cared about. When you hit a rock wall, you get rocks. When you hit the ground, you get dirt. When you roll in a swamp, you get swamp. Material type is the thing I wanted to get right, and I did spend a lot of time making this work right. Unfortunately, oh god, I'm poisoned. Unfortunately, I had to do a really shitty workaround where, how do I explain this? So I can only get one material type working per OBJ file that gets converted to an HKX. So in order to have the ground have different materials for different parts of the ground, like, the parts that are water down here, obviously, like, in order to have these be water and have this be dirt, I had to split the collision for the terrain into multiple parts, and it's not efficient. It's probably bad for the, like, optimization of the engine. I would like to fix that. The problem is that the HKX conversion tool was written by Hork. It's closed source, and I don't know what's broken that's causing it to not work for multiple materials. Drop-Off said it works for him, so clearly it's like, it can work. I think there's something to do with the fact that I wrote my own OBJ my own OBJ parser and writer for this project, because OBJ is such an easy format. I just did it really fast. It took less time to write my own OBJ parser than it would take to, like, implement someone else's API into my system. It's not like FBX. FBX is hard to parse. OBJ is like the most simplified format in the world. So I wrote my own thing. It's possible there's like one thing wrong with my OBJ writing that's like fucking everything up. Don't know why it happens, but it's very annoying. But it does work. Like, there's nothing wrong with what I'm doing on a functional level. It does work. The stone is stone, the dirt is dirt. It's good. I would like to make the code nicer and make the optimization better eventually by fixing that, so I can have one HKX file with 20 materials on it if I need to. But for the moment, this is how it is. Also, speaking of water, so I didn't talk much about this. I just said it was complicated. Yeah, having this water actually be 3D and not just a flat plane like in Morrowind, actually the worst fucking thing ever. I really should not have done this. I should have just made it a flat plane and called it a day, because, oh my god, the biggest class in this project is Liquid Manager. And Liquid Manager is a fucking mess, because I had to learn a lot of things about how I was like learning things as I was writing this. And more importantly, a big section of this is cutting meshes and triangulating them. So I'm going to load one of the liquid meshes in 3ds Max real quick. All right, so here I've loaded a debug output of a water mesh for the main Morrowind overworld. This is not actually one of the most recent ones. This is just one I had on hand. What you can see here is both cutouts and the actual water itself. So these cutouts are actually the bits of swamp throughout the, this is like the area of the game that has a bunch of swamps. I think it's the Bitter Coast, and a couple more up here. And then over here, this is actually where lava is at in the Molag Emmer region. And these cutouts, it was important to... okay, so obviously I could just have everything be a tiled water plane like this. But the problem is that if I do that, then the water waves clip through the poison as it goes up and down. And the same thing for the lava over here, but to a lesser degree because there's just not a lot of water near the lava. So I had to write a piece of code that, took all of these different poison swamp planes and subtracted them from the water plane so that the water plane would not exist anywhere there were poison swamps. Explaining this is kind of hard, but actually coding this was a fucking nightmare because subtracting sections from a triangle mesh is so not easy to do from a pure coding standpoint. The way I approached this problem was I would use outlines. So I would take the edge outlines of what I was doing and then break the edges apart and create basically an n-gon outline and then re-triangulate it afterwards. Some of this is not amazing. There's definitely some issues where it gets really... the triangulation is really bad in some places. I want to optimize this later when I get a chance and merge all of these triangles into a single quad. But for the moment, this works. it works, and I was happy that even getting this to work, I was happy. I learned a lot about how to approach this problem, and honestly, the worst part about it is the difference between colliding two edges. Whether you count, so floating point precision causes collisions between edges to be not perfectly where they're supposed to be, and calculating if a point is on a line is very awkward because it's an infinitely small error or precision error. Because a point on a line with floating point precision causes it to not really be on the line correctly sometimes, which would result in these just baffling problems that required me to write code for precision management, where I would have to I think there's a literally a function that's called tolerant point equals or something like that. Hold on. Oh, you have an is-nan. Yeah, you can't have a proper nan check for vector 3s, so I just wrote one. And then, yeah, tolerant equals, where it's distance to a degree of precision like this, because I just got tired of points not being perfectly where they were supposed to be because of a tiny amount of imprecision. And this ended up being the solution in some places not so much. It ended up being a problem, but it does work, and in the newer versions, it also triangulates a circle around the edge so that this is what water circlification means. It creates an actual circle and then connects, it re-triangulates the edges to match the circle so that the final water plane is actually a nice clean horizon line and doesn't have any jagged edges like this. Additionally, for the swamps and whatnot, I just regenerate them as something like this, where it takes the swamp plane and then just generates a regular old triangle mesh. This is so that the waves on the lava and stuff actually, wave up and down and don't get all messed up. You need some triangulation in the mesh for the waves to actually wave. So I had to do something like this to solve that problem. The swamp actually doesn't have any waves. I thought it did when I was working on it. It didn't. The lava does, so the code is shared, so they just both have this now. It's probably not perfectly optimal, but it works. But yeah, water was the worst part of this project so far. I don't know if it will continue to... I don't know if it will be surpassed. I'm hoping nothing ever is as difficult as that. It was a learning experience. I don't regret it, but god damn, it was multiple all-nighters with me just wanting to die at the end of each of them. And it still needs to be improved. I can actually show you where there's some problems. When you have areas with too much triangulation, the water plane can get a little bit a little bit weird like this. You can kind of see some awkwardness to it. It's fixable. I know how to fix it. I just haven't spent the time. It's like on my to-do list. I have a to-do list of things that I need to work on and improve eventually. But yeah, let's move on. I guess we can talk about FXR real quick. So there's not a whole lot to say. Well, I actually talked about this. I pretty much described it accurately in the video, how these work, and like they do work really well. I do like it. The candles are probably, as I've said, the world scale's wrong, so the candle is very big. Like, that is a very powerful candle flame. It's like way bigger than it should be. Easy to fix later on. But FXR Playground is really cool. I just wanted to show this off. So when I worked on Dark Souls Remastered, FXR editing, or FFX in that case, was just terrible. Like, it was just giant XML sheets with like no data. It was just like a bunch of random numbers, and you had to know which numbers to edit. FXR Playground is a tool that's been really recently made for editing stuff like this, and you can just like, it can show actual information about a FXR. It's not guessing games anymore. It's actually possible to understand what you're doing and make informed decisions as you're editing these files. And it's a wonderful tool, and I'm super impressed with it because I never thought we'd have something like this for Dark Souls modding and whatnot. So I love that. I will say though, because it's a JavaScript thing, I can't like import this to my project to use it in a more, like, I don't know if there's an FXR C# library. So forgive me for this sin, but for FXRs, I have some code here where I literally just write bytes to a file directly, because one of the FXRs that I need for Morrowind stuff to look right is literally just a light source with nothing else. It's quite literally just an FXR that creates a light source. For world lights, I use BTL. So, for example, the blue lights that these mushrooms have over here, this is a BTL. But for anything that's like a lantern or a candle like this, I have to have an FXR file attached to the model that produces that light. And there's not really a good API for editing FXRs, so I quite literally diffed a bunch of FXR files, figured out what addresses changed what, and then wrote exactly what data I needed to the specific byte in the file that it needed to be in. Not ideal. Terrible, terrible solution. But it does work. So you can hate me, but I'm right. Eventually we could fix this. It's not a permanent solution, but it's certainly there for now. And yeah, I thought I'd bring that up because it's entertaining. So let's talk about the dialogue system. That's another thing. At the moment, as I said in the video, every character gets every line of dialogue loaded in. But there's no scripting data, so there's not... it basically selects the first line variation in the stack. The way that Morrowind dialogue works is you have a topic, and then you have multiple possible responses to that topic with parameters telling the game, like, this response should only happen if the character is a wood elf, and this response should only happen if you're on this stage of this quest, and this response should only happen if you're in this city. So, for example... this is Fargoth, and Fargoth has a response to his ring, but see, this response we're getting here is the post-quest response because that's at the top of the stack, and because I'm not reading the dialogue variables yet, because they're not there yet for quests, it just assumes the quest is complete because it's the first possible entry that's in this thing. Additionally, like, if I ask him about wood elves, Bosmer, he will tell you about wood elves because he is a wood elf, and the game is like, I do have that kind of stuff. So, like, the dialogue system does have the data for, like, the character, so it knows that character's a wood elf, so he can have the Bosmer line. And it's like, I have, like, sex is there, the location is there, a couple of, there's a handful of things it does currently check. It has, like, faction, I believe that's at the bottom of ESM at the moment. Yeah, down here. So we have, we are checking speaker, race, job, faction, disposition, rank, cell, sex, filters. Filters is not checked. It's just returning a continue. And player faction, which is also not checked, I don't think. So yeah, that's the stuff I'm currently checking. Once we get dialogue, filters is where dialogue variables are in. So like this is where like it would check what stage of a quest you're on, or like how much money you have, or stuff like that. Additionally, disposition, at the moment, I'm just writing the disposition value that the character starts with. So every character has a disposition value they start at, but that value can be changed by your actions. So if you punch someone, their disposition goes down. If you bribe them, it goes up. At the moment, I'm using a fixed value. I will change that to a EMEVD multi-bit variable, and I will probably truncate it from 0 to 100 to like 0 to 10, just to make my life easier. Make it 1 byte. I'll do 0 to 16. 15, I mean. I'll have it be adjustable at that point. I think I'm going to probably try and implement things like... I'm going to try and implement bribery and persuasion, though I'll talk about that in a minute. But regardless, like, this works surprisingly well. There's still a couple bugs here and there that I just haven't looked into, but I'm excited for this because I wasn't sure if this was possible. This was the last thing I implemented before I started working on this video, because this was the thing I was like, if I can't make this work, the whole project can't happen. And this was the thing that was the most likely to break. And in fact, it did initially. So, here's a fun fact. Elden Ring can only have 65,500 lines of dialogue in it. Like, that is the actual hard limit. And Morrowind does not have more than that, but when you account... So, if you were to take each line for each possible character and make it a separate line, it's too much. It's like 70k. But... it's actually way more than 70k, but just to start, it's way more than 70k. But what I did was I took every line that's reused. So there are 100 characters that say that their background is commoner, like or this line right here where it's just like a I am blank blank blank. What else? Like services. That line is shared with everyone in Satan 8. So those lines that are shared with lots of characters, I just have all of them point to the same param now. And as a result, they point to the same point in the VC bank at the same time. So I effectively compressed the lines as much as possible. And currently we're sitting at around 12,000. When I fully implement the scripting engine, it's going to bump it up to probably 50,000. If it gets, this is actually one of those things where like I'm a little worried about it hitting the limit, but I think it's going to fit. I'm confident it's going to fit. I believe. If it doesn't, well, we'll get to that problem when we get to that problem. But yeah, basically from what I can tell, the param file uses a 2-byte integer as its like limit, so 65,000, and that's kind of where that is. Like, it's specifically a 2-byte unsigned integer, because 32,000 would be a signed one. I hope it's all going to work. I'm confident it will. I haven't actually coded it yet, so it'll be coming around the corner eventually for me. VC banks also, I kind of mentioned this. VC banks are the files that contain sound for characters talking. I fucking hate VC banks. They are pretty terrible. I don't understand why they went with the system they went with. I had to do a lot of research to like get these working, and I was helped a lot by vSwart on this. I got this is what a VC bank looks like. It's as a JSON file. They just use God, how do I even explain this fucking nonsense? Okay, so see this ID right here. This matters, specifically this one, this ID to action. This number is generated by doing a FNV hash on the string play underscore and then a talk param ID number. And I can show you what that code looks like, because it'll be in the character manager. Actually, it will be further in. It'll be under like, sound bank manager. Possibly, yeah, right here. No, right here. God, which one is it anyway? Yeah, right here. So we create this string with a play underscore v and then a row ID number, and then we f and v hash it and turn it into a uint to get an ID number that then matches up to this specific ID number in this bank file that then has a couple of chains that go to playing a sound effect. Fucking why? It's so bad. Like, could we not have done this in a way that's a little more reasonable to for like mental sanity reasons? It's ridiculous. I do hate this. My code can handle it now. It took a little while to figure this out, but what the fuck, Miyazaki. This was a process to get this working, and it still has some bugs. I've noticed a couple of times that like occasionally a dialogue line won't load. I'm sure I'm just making some kind of mistake. And by the way, every single ID number here has to be unique. So we have a file. This is such a dumb file, but it is literally a file in sound. All used bank IDs. This is literally a fucking file with 200,000 random ass numbers in it. This is every bank ID that the game uses currently, so that when I'm adding new bank IDs, I don't overlap one of them and cause conflict. And we have the same thing for like source numbers. Like it's a whole ordeal. It's very silly. I'm probably gonna have to do the same thing for EMEVD eventually, though to a lesser extent, because I'm only gonna be keeping the common events file from the base game. I'm not gonna be keeping the area files, because the overworld is basically gonna get erased when I start working on, like, the mod is going to replace Elden Ring. It's not going to, we're not going to share memory. I'm taking all the memory for myself. I'm going to get rid of everything I can from the actual base game before we start pushing into that territory. Oh yeah, we can talk about ESD. I think I've actually brought this up on stream once or twice. It's kind of a joke. So ESD is what runs the state machine that characters use when they're talking. So like this menu, every character dialogue system in this game, including some of the ones that just talk to you that don't even have a menu, they use a system called ESD, which is a state machine language. In order to edit ESD, we are currently converting the ESD to Python and then recompiling it back into an ESD after editing it. So I'm basically generating Python that then gets compiled into ESD. Now the meme here is that state machines and code are weird. They don't really fit that well together. State machines are usually edited with a visual editor that's like a graph, or it's like a flowchart machine basically. And specifically the way Elden Ring ESD works is just incomprehensible. I think I have one here I can show. Yeah, here's one. So this is I don't even know. This is like one of the characters' dialogue state machines. The thing that's incomprehensible about this is that it's asynchronous. Anytime it calls assert, that is a blocking call to run a function in the state machine. But if it says call, it is an asynchronous call. And so if you have your top state call another state, both the top state and the bottom and the state you called are now both running asynchronously together. And if you collapse this by closing the top state, any child states also close at the same time. Programmers, we don't like thinking about anything threaded because it causes pain. It causes mental anguish. So having a system like this that's like multi-threaded in such an awkward, like, I don't know, I feel like you could probably make this easier to edit somehow, but it's kind of nasty. The code for these things is just kind of nasty. I feel like you could simplify this somehow. I'm sure there's a way that we could like actually build a visual editor for this that makes sense. But for the moment, this is what we got, and my code works for it. I have a long way to go before it's actually correct, but yeah, we're certainly doing it. And back to my notes. Let's see what else I wanted to bring up. All right, so I pulled up the Dark Souls 3 build that I still just have laying around, loading into the same area. I wanted to talk about doors. So I've got load doors working pretty much as expected in Elden Ring. Oh my god, I forgot how weird the controls are. The Dark Souls 3's debug is so weird. So anyways, I got the doors working, load doors working just fine in Elden Ring. But I have not looked into doing functional doors, which is the kind of door that actually, like, doesn't load a new area, but instead is like this, where you can just open them. And I don't know if Elden Ring has anything like this. These don't work amazingly well. I only vaguely got this working for Dark Souls 3. But, like, yeah, I don't know how we're going to handle this in Elden Ring. I know it's possible to make this happen. The big thing is that, like, having collision attached to a object you can interact with like this, I don't really know how we achieve that. HKX editing is very, very annoying and very difficult to understand. So it's going to take a bit of work. There is the option where we just delete these doors, and instead of having doors like this at all, we just remove them all. And that wouldn't impact gameplay at all, especially because, the load doors are what's important. But it is just a concern I have, is like making interactable doors that functionally move work correctly in Elden Ring's engine. The way I did it in Dark Souls 3 is I actually just took one of the Dark Souls 3 doors that you can open and reskinned it so that the Morrowind door appeared over it, and it just uses the collision from base game Dark Souls 3, which matches close enough. It's most of the way there. A couple of the doors are a little too small or big, but it's mostly fine. So, there's a lot of possibilities, but I wanted to point that out, that I don't really know how I'm going to approach that problem yet. I haven't gotten to I don't need to approach it yet, but eventually I'm going to have to look into it. Another thing that I wanted to go ahead and talk about was, like, adaptation for this code. So I'm sure some people are curious if you could use this code to port Oblivion or Skyrim to Elden Ring or Dark Souls 3. And the answer is a complicated yes, sort of. It's definitely feasible. Morrowind, Skyrim, and Oblivion are all basically the same game in terms of, like, the engine. And the file formats aren't that different. I believe the NIF file has changed slightly between games, but not enough that it would cause problems. And the same goes for, like, the ESM. I'm pretty sure that the structure of cells and references and content all works basically the same throughout each of the Elder Scrolls games, to the point where you would have to rewrite a lot of the code and like readapt it, but the structure of what I'm doing does apply to every other Elder Scrolls game so far. So the answer is a maybe. If this project goes well, maybe I'll feel like doing Oblivion or Skyrim next. I don't know. I mean, I might be just completely burned out after I finish this. I might be burned out before I finish it. Let's be real. But I'm not going to discount it. It's not impossible. That's for sure. You'd have to be a lot more careful with resources, though. Morrowind definitely is low enough poly that I can, like, get it to load. Skyrim you'd have to be really careful with your LODs and your distance models and stuff. And on that note, actually, DLC is a thing. So, I don't know if we're going to include Blood Moon and Tribunal in this project. I kind of want to, but I'm worried we'll run out of dialogue space or physical space in the world. Currently, Morrowind sits quite comfortably inside of the bounds of the Elden Ring world space. Like, it doesn't... It only takes up existing MSB space. It does not... I don't need to make new MSB space. But if I were to add Blood Moon, that might be a little too big. I either might run out of memory for talk params, or I might run out of space for MSBs. I don't know. It could go either way, realistically, but it is certainly a concern. And I want to include Blood Moon, but I'm not going to worry about it until I've stabilized other things. The big thing is I need to really get that scripting engine built in, Once I have the game in a playable state and I know I can fit the main game in, I'll start worrying about Blood Moon. And the last thing is I just wanted to briefly go over some ideas I've had about like gameplay. This is a bit of a ways off. We're still not at a point where I'm designing gameplay yet, but I just thought it'd be fun to discuss because I'm sure people have their own ideas about this. The first thing is like graces. So I don't really want to have like Elden Ring style of just having graces everywhere all over the map. And I don't really want to have warping either. I think what I want to do is I want to make it where going to an inn and resting is the equivalent of resting in a grace or a bonfire, so that you are encouraged to interact with the world in a very how's the word, like intuitive way. Like you go out on a journey, you do some stuff, you come back to town, you go to the inn, you rent a room, you rest for the night, you level up, you reorganize your equipment, and you're healed, and you get all your stuff back, and then you head out. Like I like that gameplay loop. That's a very much a thing of like Morrowind and Skyrim and Oblivion. So that's probably how I'm going to approach this. And as a result, I'm probably going to just completely get rid of fast travel from the map and force you to use the Morrowind fast travel system, which is, for those of you who aren't really familiar with Morrowind, Silt Striders are in each major town, and you can use a Silt Strider to travel between towns basically instantly. It's just like a warp point basically. And the Mages Guild has a teleportation network that allows you to teleport from one Mages Guild to another, which allows you to travel across the map super fast. And, of course, there are teleport spells like Omzivi Intervention, Divine Intervention, and Mark and Recall that allow you to just literally teleport places. And I'll probably just implement that system as is. Like, I'll just, completely lift it exactly as it is, and hopefully that'll work really well, because I've always found Morrowind's fast travel to be really well designed in that regard, in that it's what's the word? Diegetic. It's like implemented into the world in a way that makes sense. It's like if Skyrim didn't have fast travel and just had the horse carts, like in survival mode, because that feels more like a RPG system and less just like I teleport here, I teleport there. Additionally, Morrowind's map is a lot smaller than Elden Ring's, and there's a lot more stuff in it. It's way more compact. So it's not like you really need to warp that much compared to Elden Ring, where if you actually just wanted to walk across the map in Elden Ring, it takes fucking forever. And there's just not a lot in the map at the same time. Additionally, I'm kind of curious how people would feel about no respawns or very limited respawning, because obviously in Elder Scrolls, like, you kill an enemy and it usually stays dead for a long time, but not forever. And I feel like I don't know if I'd want to do that or not. Like, have it where, like, enemies respawn unless you, like, explicitly rest for a long period. Like, have an option when you're resting in an inn to rest for a week as opposed to just a day, and doing so would respawn all the enemies or something like that. I don't really know how I'd want to do that, but I've thought about it, because I'm not sure how I feel like about that as a system. I feel like it encourages you to explore more, because once you kill the enemies in an area, they're dead and you can't kill them again, so you move on to a new area, which Morrowind has a lot of dungeons. Like, oh my lord, there are like 4 quadrillion interior cells. So I feel like it could work, but I'm not really sure, and it's something I'll have to kind of decide in testing and less in, just completely open gameplay theory. Another thing is skills. So in Morrowind, a lot of NPCs exist to be trainers, so they'll train you in a skill. Obviously, we can't have that as a system in Elden Ring. There's not really a good way to do it, aside from making them like Ash of War trainers, basically. But what I could do is add certain mechanics into the game as skills that are not stats, so not like vitality, strength, dex, but like something that's separate and would probably just act as a key item. Like, it would be like a certificate of training in persuasion, and it allows you to be better at persuading NPCs, or certificate of lockpicking, which allows you to pick locks up to a certain level, and have it where when you talk to so instead of having NPCs train you in skills like directly, they give you an item that gives you the training of a skill, like a perk, like you talk to the lockpick trainer, and he gives you you pay him money, and he allows you to now pick locks up to level 10, and then you talk to another lockpick trainer and he levels you up to level 20, and that allows us to have the things that are not built in. So like charisma doesn't exist in Elden Ring, so all of the charisma related stuff has to be some external system I add. I basically a little mutant like arm that grows out of the side of Elden Ring. It's the system for persuasion and bribery and taunting, and then have a little system for lockpicking, a little system for trap picking, and stuff like that. There's a couple, like alchemy was one, armorer, a couple things like that. It wouldn't be a major thing. A lot of these will just be pretty simple, straightforward, but I do think it's like notable. Like I'm gonna have to implement these systems in some way, and I haven't really decided how. The other option is, of course, to just change arcane into charisma. I mean, I don't know if this would work. I don't really know if it would work right. I haven't checked if there is code to do like checks on player stats yet. I would guess there is, but I would genuinely have to go look at it. But we could just make arcane into charisma. That's an option. I mean, who plays arcane anyway in Elden Ring? Shit sucks. But yeah, it's a lot to think about in that regard. But right now, my focus is just getting the game playable, and then I can worry about the fine tuning of mechanics after the game is fully playable. So yeah, I feel like that's enough talking for today. I think I've probably discussed enough aspects of this, and yeah, let me know in the let me know in the comments what you guys think. This is a super big project with a lot going on and a lot of interesting things to think about. So, hope you all have a wonderful day, and don't forget to brush your teeth.